This episode has been a long time coming. So a few months ago, I got a message on Instagram, on my @YourConfident30s Instagram, from someone who was going through a divorce and wanted to feel confident in themselves again, dating, and not need a girl's attention to feel wanted. So I'm going to share the message with you, and then I'm going to respond with my advice, what I would suggest, and what I would do if I was going through this situation. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Date with Confidence podcast, a place to come for dating advice, support, and stories that'll either fill you with hope or relief that your dating experience wasn't as bad as it could have been, with practical episodes that'll provide you with easy to implement tips to help you feel confident AF on your next date, alongside lighthearted catch-ups where your host Rebecca, that's me by the way, shares her own experience dating after 4 years of the single life. You are guaranteed to end each episode feeling less alone in your dating struggles, empowered to never settle again, and confident that the best is yet to come. And if it all falls to shit, there's a special first season dedicated to breakups. You are welcome, my friend. Subscribe, review, and share with your single friends. So the message I received was, "Hi, I'm 34, I was married with 2 kids and had been in an unhappy relationship for 8 years. Now single for 2 years, I've been dating but coming to realise that I need to deal with some attachment issues. I'm struggling to be happy on my own, probably because I feel like a failure as my marriage broke down and I'm living with my parents until we sort out our family home. What would you suggest the best thing to do for someone who wants to find happiness in their own skin and not feel they need a girl's attention to feel confident and wanted? I hope this makes sense. I really want a relationship when the time is right." So first of all, I would say, I think it is so good that you're able to acknowledge that there are some attachment issues here that need addressing, because the first step to change is always awareness. And when we're not aware of these things, we can't actually change them. So the fact that you've tried dating, you've dipped your toe in, and now you've realised, actually, I've got some work to do, that's fantastic. Like, we're all a work in progress all of the time. I don't ever believe that we reach this point in our lives where we are 100% healed and 100% perfect and we've nailed absolutely everything. I think we will always be a work in progress until the day that we die. But the fact that you have acknowledged that is really important, because so many people don't acknowledge that they have some things to work on. So this is fantastic. So I just want to commend you there for actually like admitting to yourself that you've got some work to do. So first of all, amazing, go you. Now, when it comes to what you've shared here, the first thing that I really wanted to focus on was shifting that belief that getting divorced and moving back in with your parents makes you a failure, because it absolutely does not. Despite what you might see on the media, despite other people's opinions, despite what society says, you are not a failure because your marriage didn't work out. You are not a failure for getting divorced. You are not a failure for moving back in with your parents. And I think that's the core thing that really needs some work, is shifting out of that belief that there's now something wrong with you, or that you've messed up, or like, these things happen. I think around 42% of marriages in the UK end in divorce at the moment. So you're not the only one experiencing this. You're not the only person to have ever got divorced. Like, this is quite a common thing that people go through. That doesn't make anyone else a failure at all. It's just one of those things, and unfortunately it is more common nowadays. I mean, I say unfortunately, I don't even think there's any unfortunate about it. I think it's more common nowadays because it's more accessible. Whereas if you think historically, like 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago, you would, like, divorce would have been a shameful thing, and it was something that wasn't readily accessible to a lot of people. And because of that, think about how many people lived their lives in unhappy scenarios, unhappy relationships, unhappy marriages, because there was no other alternative. And especially for women who were never allowed to be financially stable and financially independent from their husbands, the amount of women trapped in relationships and trapped in marriages because there was no other way out. Like, divorce sucks. As a child, like as a child, I'm obviously a woman now, but as someone who experienced divorce from the child's perspective, divorce does suck. But at the same time, I do think that we're really lucky to be in a position where it is possible nowadays, and where we do have options. Like, however awful it is to have been in love with someone and then decide that actually that's not how it's going to happen, or for the other person to fall out of love with you, however awful that is, I do think it can be seen as a positive thing. Like, I'm a very glass half full person. Like, I like to look for the good in everything. I think it is a positive thing that it's better to go through the pain of a divorce than go through 30, 40, 50 years of your life unhappy in something because there's no other option. So yeah, maybe switching switching what divorce looks like and what divorce actually means, that might be helpful as well. And in terms of the failure thing, as I just mentioned, like, my parents got divorced when I was a kid. I think I was about 8 when they split up. My dad lived in my bedroom for, must have been about a year, because I had one of those bunk beds that had, it was like a bunk bed and then it had a sofa bed underneath, and it pulled out into a double sofa bed, or probably wasn't a full double, it was probably like a small double sofa bed. But he like lived in my room for like a year, and then he moved in with my nan and granddad for I don't even know how long, months, a year, a couple of years. I've got no concept of time. It probably wasn't as long as I think it was, but he moved in with them until he was able to buy a new house. And as a child, at no point did I see my dad as a failure because he had to move back in with my nan and granddad. And I just wanted to say that because you mentioned that you have kids. If you're concerned that your children will see you as a failure, like, know that that's not going to happen. If that wasn't on your mind anyway, then that's fine. But I'm sure someone will feel relieved to hear that, like, your kids aren't going to think that you're a failure just because you got divorced. And also, from that perspective, just in case this makes you feel any better, I hated going through my parents' divorce. It was obviously horrible and quite traumatic, but at the same time, them separating was the best thing that could have happened for our family, because the arguments, the tension, the spitefulness, the like resentment, like, I could feel all that as a kid. Yet when they separated, obviously that wasn't, well, I mean, it was there, but it wasn't in my environment on a daily basis, if you like. So even though it might be hard for the kids, like, kids are resilient, they'll be fine in the end, which is not, we're not going to get into that now because that's not what you've asked. Instead of anchoring into the belief that you're a failure, I'd really encourage you to adopt a new, more empowering belief and remind yourself that this is only temporary and it's part of a living human experience. So we all go through ups and downs, none of which mean we have failed at life. Unfortunately, it's just one of those things. I follow Catherine Zenkina, who's a manifestation babe, and I remember her talking once about the idea that we are all souls that choose to live a human existence. So our souls have come into our bodies and chosen to live a human existence, because obviously souls are just souls. They don't have any physical attributes, whereas the soul enters your human body so they can experience what it's like to live a human life. And they want to, like, our paths, if you believe in this, like, I don't know how much I believe in this, but I like this concept that our paths are set out for us and we're supposed to experience certain obstacles and experience certain lows and also experience certain highs, and that's just part of our soul's way of living that human existence. So it was just written into your destiny that this was always meant to happen, and if it was part of your destiny, then it also means that there's a positive that's going to come out of it. That's how I like to view things, because it just makes me feel better than thinking, like, focusing on all the things that absolutely suck. So maybe that's helped as well. Then on to your question, what would you suggest the best thing to do for someone who wants to find happiness in their own skin and not feel they need a girl's attention to feel confident and wanted? So we're going to break this down into 2 parts. So part 1, think about how can you bring more happiness into your life. So what can you do for yourself that brings you joy without a partner? And think about the things that you can do on a daily basis to feel happy. So tiny little things. Like, it doesn't have to be things like jetting away on holiday for a month or like big grand things. Like, it can just be little moments, because what we will really want to focus on is creating like smaller pockets of joy throughout the day that then lead to a more joyful experience overall, as opposed to trying to create one big happiness event and then spending the rest of the time trapped in the feelings of failure and anxiety and I'm not good enough. So what little things can you do for yourself regularly to bring more happiness into your life? Also, so that you get used to feeling happiness again regularly, and romanticize the shit out of your life. Like, I do this all the time. The tiniest little things, making a coffee, I will make it into this, like, I mean, it's not aesthetically pleasing, but it's like this beautiful ritual where I'm like, okay, I'm filling up the kettle, I'm pouring the coffee into the cup, I'm using the like pre-made sachets of cappuccino coffee at the moment because that feels like a luxury as opposed to like an instant coffee. Like, I stare out the window, I smell the coffee, like I take moments to be really present with the simple thing of making a coffee. And I imagine that it's like this big like silky montage event, like really glamorizing the most basic shit, and it helps me to romanticize my life, and in doing that it makes the most mundane moments feel magical. And then when I'm operating from that space of I'm so grateful for this delicious coffee and I'm so grounded in the present moment and I'm not thinking about all the things that I'm worried about, it just shifts your energy in a way that you'll naturally exist in a more positive, happy, calm, grounded state for the majority of the time. Now, obviously, we're all human beings, so we're always going to have like the lows. We're always going to have the moments where we shift away from being grounded, where our thoughts distract us, where we obsess over things that are like failure, for example. Like, that's just how we are. But the more we can bring ourselves back to ourselves over and over again, it's literally just a practice. Like, we just have to practice coming back to ourselves. It's not a case of, oh, I've come back to myself once and now I'm going to be happy all the time. Like, it is an exercise. It's like exercising the happy muscle, just like you'd exercise a part of your body. So how can you bring more happiness into your life, and how can you romanticize the shit out of everything that you're doing on a daily basis to feel happiness more often? And then part 2 to that, you need to be your own source of validation, which I'm so sure I've talked about on the podcast before, but I was like searching my notes and I don't know what episode I've talked about it in. So apologies for that. You can go and have a little binge of all the other episodes. But yeah, you need to be your own source of validation. So ask yourself, how can you feel confident in yourself on a daily basis? Is it about going to the gym to get your endorphins flowing, or going for a walk to just shift any stagnant energy? Is it about wearing an outfit that you know you look good in, or telling yourself on a daily basis how good you look? So getting up, looking at yourself in the mirror and going, I look fucking great today. And just validating yourself from that perspective. In order to make that easier, you need to be doing things for yourself on a regular basis from a self-care perspective. So whether that's like eating nourishing food, drinking plenty of water, getting regular exercise, not from a space of like changing how your body looks, but from a space of these things naturally make you feel better mentally as well as physically. So it's really more about the mental here. And then, yeah, like telling yourself how good you look rather than waiting for someone else to tell you how good you look. Really getting comfortable and confident in who you are right now rather than relying on somebody else to tell you how good you are. And that, again, is a practice, like telling yourself, I'm so proud of you, celebrating every little thing that you managed to achieve, celebrating the small moments, congratulating yourself when you've done something that was really hard, constantly being your biggest cheerleader over and over again, rather than focusing on the things where rather than focusing on the flaws or your perceived flaws, the things that you're perhaps not so successful of. Like, don't worry about those. We all have like shortcomings in different areas. There's always things we're not very good at, but rather than anchoring into not being good at those things, anchor into the things that you are really good at. Like, maybe take up a new hobby that you can learn and that you can build your confidence in. Push yourself out of your comfort zone, because confidence very much comes from taking action. So the more things you do that feel uncomfortable, whether it's taking yourself out on a solo date or joining a football team or like doing some kind of hobby where you have to go and meet new people, or anything like that where you have to take action that feels a little bit scary, you're going to naturally feel more confident in yourself then, and then it's going to be easier to validate yourself regularly, because you'll build up this strong, positive self-image that you don't need to rely on anybody else's opinion from. So another helpful episode that might be useful when it comes to this is how to be confident in yourself when dating. So I will link that in the show notes so that you can go and listen to that. Obviously, if you're taking a break from dating, then maybe it's something to listen to when you dip your toe back into dating. And then in a few episodes' time, it's coming up in October. I can't remember which date specifically, but it's coming up in October. So within the next 3 or 4 weeks, I'm releasing an episode on how to overcome anxious attachment when dating someone new. So I think that's going to be really helpful for you to help with the anxiety around dating. So I will, just subscribe to the podcast and it will come up in your feed in the next couple of weeks. So I hope that was really helpful. If you're looking to increase your confidence even more, you want to build a really solid level of self-confidence where you can be your own validator, where you feel less anxious when it comes to dating, where you just feel more confident and accepting of yourself in your own skin, and where you want to raise your relationship standards, then check out the confidence course in the show notes, because that is going to be so super helpful in getting you to this place where you're not ashamed of where you are confident in your own skin, and it will help you date more confidently in the future. And that, there's a module 6 has got 4 lessons, or it's got 5 lessons because there's a lesson on boundaries, but it's got 4 individual lessons around raising your standards. And it includes raising your standards for your career or business, raising your financial standards, raising your health and wellness standards, and raising your relationship standards, which is going to be so super helpful for you when it comes to dating. So you can, check that out in the show notes. If you would like to contribute your stories to the Date with Confidence podcast, or you would also like to ask me a question that I can do a whole episode around, then you can go to datewithconfidencepodcast.com/contribute. The link's in the show notes, so you can just click through there. You can share your best or worst dating stories, your biggest icks. You can share dating tips you think everyone should know, or ask me anything about my dating life. Or, as I said, if you've got a question that you need help with, then you can ask me there. And don't forget to check the show notes for resources and courses to help you date with confidence. The questions I answer are normally answered in the community episode, which is the second week of every month that comes out. But for questions like this, where there's a lot for me to say, I've done a whole episode around it, because I think this is a really important topic that is going to help so many people. Whereas the community episodes tend to be shorter questions, or questions where you just want where you're just like curious about things. Your question will either be shared in the community episode every second week of the month, or if it's a really big question I have a lot to say, then I will do a whole episode around it. So thank you so much for listening. If you haven't left me a review yet, please leave me a review on iTunes. I will see you in the next one. Thanks so much for listening to the Date with Confidence podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Subscribe, rate and review, and share it with your single friends.